Well, good morning, everyone. Hey, thanks for coming. My name is Bob Keene. I'm the editor in charge of the journal Fire Ecology. We have an exciting webinar today because I have literally a cast of thousands to introduce the journal and tell you exactly what you need to publish it in the journal. So what's going to happen is that I will introduce these cast of players as we go along, so you'll get to know them, get to know what they do, and so on. And hopefully by the end of the webinar, we'll be able to go ahead and submit to Fire Ecology and be reasonably sure that you submitted to the right journal. Up first is a Sharon Hood. She's with the U.S. Forest Service at the Rocky Mountain Research Station in the Fire Lab. And she is the chair of the Publications Committee. Now, a lot of you didn't know that the journal is associated with AFI, the Association of Fire Ecology. And AFI used to own and run the journal, the running and maintenance of the journal was under the aegis of the Publications Committee, and that, of course, is chaired by Sharon Hood. And she is going to talk about what the journal is. Sharon?
Hey, good morning and welcome, everyone. Appreciate your interest in the journal. I was going to start by just giving a brief history about Fire Ecology. And like Bob said, the journal is the scientific journal of the Association for Fire Ecology. So it's an important point in that Fire Ecology is tied to a professional society. The Association for Fire Ecology's mission is for promoting fire ecology research, education, and management. So the journal is a major way that the society fulfills this mission. And AFI works hard to support the journal and support the authors who publish in the journal. The first issue of Fire Ecology was published in 2005 with Mike Medler as the first editor. And at that time, AFI wanted to establish a scientific journal that had an outlet for papers about fire ecology. They wanted to make sure that that the material that was published was open to all. It was important for managers to get access to this information and not just and not limit access by if your library had or institution had paid subscription fees. So it was online only and open access. And like Bob said, it was completely published by AFI and the website maintained by AFI, and had so everything was run in-house. And after Mike Medler, Jan van Wagenbach, and Jim Agee were editors, and now Bob Keene is the current editor starting since 2016. I can advance the slide, Bob. So in 2016, when Bob took over as editor, the conversations with Bob and the Publications Committee, we started to feel that the journal had just gotten too big to keep being published in-house. There's a lot of background work within the publications world that AFI didn't really have the skills to do anymore. It was just starting to get an overwhelming workload for the editor and associate editors. So in 2018, we signed a contract with Springer Nature. So Springer now manages all the submission system, and the journal's still open access and online only, but the submission system is expanded. It's a much more comprehensive journal website, so it has a lot more options, a lot more marketing and social media because it taps into all the other Springer journals. And we also updated the layout to where it has it's more professional look and feel, just kind of more updated for the time. The drawback to this is it did become more expensive to publish. It's now about $1,800 to publish an article in the journal. Bob will talk more about that later. Can go ahead. So when we moved to Springer, we wanted to expand the scope of fire ecology. So fire ecology still very much focuses on aspects of fire ecology, and it always will, but we wanted to make sure it was clear to people that we publish a variety of topics, including, you could see this list here, from social sciences to fire science and planning, policy, and it's not just about fire ecology. So while all articles tend to or will have some aspect relating to fire ecology, it doesn't necessarily need to be the focus. So we really have tried to broaden the scope of the journal and to make it more applicable to a wider audience. And you can read more about that and the link provided. So, and so we also expanded our article types that we publish. So a lot of these are still the same if we're familiar with fire ecology before we moved to Springer. We still have the original research articles. Those are probably the most familiar to people, kind of your standard data papers. But we also highly encourage reviews. We still have a forum article, which is a place for to express opinions. We now have a monograph, since we have more word limits on some of the other article types. So a monograph are really comprehensive papers that are longer in format. Really new and different are their technical notes and field notes, and these provide outlets for people that have results of maybe a case study or field observations that typically may not meet the criteria for either for statistical rigor or for the original research articles, but still provide valuable information to the fire ecology community. So these technical notes and field note article types are a good outlet if you have shorter papers you want to publish. And then these book reviews and the classic reprints are largely based on editor invites. So that website below has it provides a fuller description for each of these article types, and gives the word limits and all the criteria that you would need to submit based on each of the article types. So you need to look at that website for more information. And hand it back over to Bob.
Thank you, Sharon. That's great. You really covered that well. So this is the first thing we usually get asked is, if you're thinking about publishing in fire ecology, what should you do? And these are the 4 points that are made on the website below. If you go to the submission guidelines, these 4 points are made, and I'm going to add a little more context and a little more detail of these four things so you don't have to read them. And so I'm going to go through each one of them, and hopefully that'll help you understand the journal and then decide if the journal is right for you. So the first thing you should know is, does the topic of my paper, is it correct for the journal? And since we expanded the topics that we cover for the journal, usually as long as there's a little ecology in it, it'll cover it. So, and when we added wildland fuels, this added in a whole bunch of papers on the wildland fuel side, because after all, wildland fuels are the bridge between fire ecology and fire behavior. So one easy way to decide is, does my paper emphasize the fire behavior side, or does it emphasize the fire ecology side? When I say fire ecology, I include fuels as well. And so if it emphasizes the ecology, if those are your response variables, so, ecological response variables, then fire ecology is for you. Now, just a couple of points I want to make in this particular slide is, number one, if you're deciding whether or not Fire Ecology is the right journal, you're probably thinking, here are the other journals I should probably think about. And one of those is the International Journal of Wildland Fire. And that, of course, is run and managed by the International Association of Wildland Fire. And then another is the journal Fires, which is an MDPI journal that is a totally run-for-profit journal. So both IJWF and Fire Ecology are run by professional societies. This is pretty amazing because Fire Ecology spends about $10,000 a year to make sure, the AFI spends about $10,000 a year making sure that Fire Ecology is a premier journal. So AFI has a vested interest to make sure that Fire Ecology does well. So if you're, that is not true of the journal Fires. Fires is an MDPI journal, which is only geared to putting out publications so they can charge the authors and make a profit. They are not associated with any professional journal, and they are totally unlike the International Journal of Wildland Fire and Fire Ecology. So if you really want to make sure the field of fire science is continues to be well supported and is represented by these two journals, you should really submit to one or the other. I will tell you that I am constantly in contact with Sue Conard and Stefan Dauer, the editors of the International Journal of Wildland Fire, and we constantly pass papers back and forth if they're more appropriate for our journal versus theirs and so on. So we work together. We do not work with Fires. So that is one thing. The other one is that I have never seen any citation factor or impact factor that discriminates between what kind of article types that you submit. The article types, everybody wants to submit original research because they think it is more prominent. It is more, it's better for your career and so on. But if you take a look at the great people in fire science like Dick Rothermel, his high impact factor was due only to technical papers and not to journal articles. So it really doesn't matter how you publish. And in fact, if you think your study is limited in scope and number of plots and so on, it's just as good to publish under a field note than it is under original research article. So it is very important that you know that the publication metrics do not discriminate between article types. And so don't feel that going from original research down to a technical note is a bad thing. It is just as good for your career as anything. Okay, so the next question we always get asked, and that's detailed on the website, is how much does it cost? And of course, this is where the gasps start to begin. The APC, or the article processing charge for Fire Ecology for original research, reviews, forum articles, and monographs are around $2,100, and that is very high, I admit. But Springer did a market research and found that this is the median for our type of journal, these mid-range types of journals. And in fact, we're cheaper than most of the other journals as far as APC charges. Now, a lot of you are probably wondering, why is this charge so high? Well, one of the reasons why this charge is so high is because the people at AFI, the board, decided that they wanted Fire Ecology to continue to be an open access journal. And open access costs a lot of money. But with open access, there is a lot of things that are beneficial to the fire science community. So as I go through here, I want to emphasize that all the great stuff you get with the $2,100. And number one, the biggest thing you get is you get full control of your own article. It's open access. No one's going to ever ask anyone else for money to download it. So it will be free to everyone that wants to look at your article. Note that technical notes, field notes, book reviews, and classic reprints are about half of that. But also note that AFI members, if you're a member of the Association of Fire Ecology, you get a 15% discount on the original research and so on, and then 45% discount on notes, reviews, and reprints. So this is pretty substantial. Here's a neat little statistic is my contacts at Springer told me that of all the articles we published in the last 2 years, only 4 have used the AFI discount. This amazes me, which tells me that AFI members are not publishing in Fire Ecology, and we hope to get a lot more. We hope to make sure that the Fire Ecology is their premier go-to journal. One of the great things we have, and one of the reasons you should publish in Fire Ecology, is that we have a cast of associate editors that are second to none. They are amazing people. They do everything they volunteer for free, and they put all their heart and soul into it. And we have a great board of editors that if you want to look at them, they're on the website. And if you're an associate editor, or if you get a paper to review, you get a 15% discount for submitting to Fire Ecology. That's a pretty substantial less. The other thing is Springer has a deal where if you're a low-income country, and I think there's 103 of them, if you go on our website, you can find the link to where the low-income countries are, and they also have a discount. And some countries actually get their paper fees waived. And the last thing I want to emphasize is that I also am given the right to waive 5 papers a year. For Springer gives me the right to waive the publication cost of 5 papers per year, and AFI will allow me to waive the costs of 3 papers per year. So I have the ability to waive publication costs. I will not waive publication costs if you're, for a lot of, especially if you work in government, and that's the primary responsibility of the government to publish those papers. I think that we should allow the governments to do the cost, but if you're from universities and can't afford it, we certainly should have a dialogue on whether or not you can get a waiver. I will prioritize those waivers to the most impactful articles. Okay, the next thing you have to look is, okay, how am I going to write my article? And please use the guidelines, the Springer guidelines that are on the web page. They're actually very easy to run. Springer will pretty much accept everything, but please look at what section heads should be and how you should do indent paragraphs and so on. This is incredibly important, and I'm going to emphasize why that's incredibly important. It's important because if your paper gets to us and there's a lot of work to be done as far as editorial content, it will delay the review, it will delay the publication, it will delay the copy editing of it, it'll delay everyone, and your paper will come out later than you want. So it is to your benefit to get that paper in the best possible form before you submit, because then you will assure that you will get the fastest review and the fastest publication in time and production. So also note on the Springer guideline, to keep up with all the ethics in scientific publishing, there are many ancillary items that you also need to submit. So please submit those. And believe it or not, if you don't submit it, I don't even get the paper until all those are submitted. If you are, I would strongly suggest you find an editor if possible, or if you need it. If you're a first-time person, please get your person and never published a paper before, or haven't published very many, please get someone else to review, do a friendly review of the paper. And if you have co-authors, please insist that they do a friendly review of the paper. It is so obvious sometimes when an author submits a paper with 15 co-authors and it's written poorly, when you know that those other co-authors have written extensive papers in this field of science. So please have your other co-authors review the paper. And then, of course, if English is your second language, and this is a really important point, is that either find a U.S. English-speaking partner to review, or go to the website, the Springer website for Fire Ecology, and there are several links to people who actually do it, and it'll cost around $500, but you can get your paper edited by then and make it into a wonderful document. So please write in a clear, concise manner, Because if you don't, when your paper gets to our copy editor, and she's Lori Burke, and if you've never worked with Lori, she's a wonderful person. Lori has to spend a lot more time with your paper. So, Lori, could you tell these people what they need to do?
You bet. Thanks, Bob. So, as Bob just said, if you want the review process to go really smoothly and quickly, you need to follow our guidelines, and you can find those guidelines on Springer's submission guidelines page. All you have to do is click on any type of article, and then you'll find the links to two really important documents. The first and most important document, if Bob wants to put that up there in the screen, there it is called simply Fire Ecology Guidelines. And this is a clear, concise, and comprehensive detailing of what fire ecology is looking for in a scientific paper in terms of structure, format, and style. The second document on the bottom right-hand side of the, bottom right-hand side of the screen is called Author's Checklist. And that's really just a distillation of the original guidelines. And you should use these as a checklist to double-check your paper just right before you submit it. And that's basically the crux of it. If you, you'll just be doing yourself a really big favor if you will use these guidelines.
Yeah, and the time to publication is substantial because, and it could be 2 weeks to a month that you would save by doing this. So please get your paper up to snuff and everything will work out fine. One of the last things I want to highlight, the fourth point that I want to make is that what about copyright? And as most of you know, most articles that are not open access are solely either the ownership of the professional society or of the journal publisher. In this case, that is not true for Fire Ecology. When you publish in Fire Ecology, you get all copyright. In other words, all authors of the articles published in Fire Ecology retain the copyright of the articles and are free to reproduce and disseminate the work however they want. This also means that every figure that you created or whatever is your property, and you can give permission or not give permission for other people to use it. So recognize that one of the benefits of publishing Fire Ecology is that it is your article and no one else has the rights to it except you, not Affy and not Springer. Okay, a lot of people ask, well, what happens when I submit the paper? Well, what happens is we follow this. Actually, it's a double-blind peer review system, but the double-blind does not always work out sometimes, but it's a blind peer review system where when you submit, Springer takes the article, make sure that you have put in all the ancillary documents and so on, and then they finally give it to me. I scan it, I look at it, and decide if it is of sufficient shape as far as editorial content and technical merit to give it to an AE, which is an associate editor. And then if it is, then I assign it to an associate editor. That associate editor then reviews the paper and decides if it should be rejected outright without further review or whether it should have a review. And if it should have a review, that associate editor will send it out to at least 2 and sometimes 3 or 4 reviewers, and will ask for these reviews. And these scientists will review anonymously. The identity of the AE is totally unknown to the author, as are the reviewers. So AE and reviewers are anonymous. The reviews are usually due in 3 weeks, but here's the hitch, is that in the publication world, we depend on these scientific reviews, and they are done by people such as you. And the problem is, of course, is that you don't get money for them, and we are hoping that you will just further the field, and we're extremely thankful that you are able to put in the time to do a review. Now, a lot of reviewers just don't have the time to do it in 3 weeks. So sometimes the reviews take longer, and sometimes it could take up to 2 months in order to get the reviews. So this is one of the cracks in our double-blind review system, is that the reviewers are volunteers, and you can't prioritize our reviews in their busy work schedules. So that is one of the reasons why your papers are sometimes late. From these reviews, from the anonymous reviews, the AE then decides whether or not the paper should be accepted with minor or major, or whether it should be rejected or not, and then sends that decision to the editor. The editor then scans this, looks at the reviews, looks at the decision that the editor does, and 99 times out of 100, the editor I will go with what the AE has decided. And if it's accepted, if we accept it with major or minor comments, you have the authors have 4 to 6 weeks to revise, and once they're revised, and the AE says, okay, you can go ahead and accept it, that paper then goes to Lori for copy editing, for the editorial review, and that will be another 2 weeks that you'll probably work with Lori to get that done. And then finally, when Lori says, okay, this paper is finally good, she lets me know, and then I accept the paper and we put it into production. And the production right now is taking at least 4 to 8 weeks. So here are the things you should know if you want to publish in Fire Ecology. The first question that everybody asks is, how long does it take to publication? Well, it depends on the reviewers, as I said, and it depends on how fast the authors get to those changes, but we're averaging right now about 6 to 8 months from submission to publication. Our target is to get it down to 3 to 4 months. 6 to 8 months is about average for most journals. 4 to 5 months is way above. 3 to 4 months is way above average. So we hope to get it down that. There are many papers now that come through that are well written, that are easy to review. They easily make the 3 to 4 month deadline. So in other words, no longer do we have to wait a year for your paper to get reviewed. Now it takes anywhere from 6 to 8 months, and it may take as little as 4. Next thing is that, what about that Fire Ecology impact factor? And our impact factor unfortunately went down in the last 2 years. It was 2.02, and now it's down to 1.67. But our 5 years is 2.23 and increasing. And all of our other factors match mid-range scientific journals. But I'm gonna kind of get on my soapbox here as an author and not as the editor and say, why am I interested in impact factors? Well, here is the math that's used to calculate impact factors, and it's basically the sites of that Fire Ecology gets over the last 2 years divided by the number of articles that Fire Ecology has over the last 2 years. And if people aren't citing Fire Ecology, then you're not going to get a high impact factor. But if you go ahead and only put out 20 instead of 40 articles, you can get a high impact factor by just adjusting that denominator. So I want to emphasize that this, to me, is not a statistic you want to use to evaluate whether or not you want to publish in Fire Ecology. What are the other things that you want? Well, first of all, Fire Ecology is one of the very few journals that publish our abstracts both in English and Spanish. And the reason, of course, is there is some wonderful Fire Ecology being done in Spanish-speaking countries that are incredibly important to the field of wildland fire science. And so we publish these Spanish abstracts, and believe it or not, Guillermo de Fossi and his crew have just got the AE Editors of the Year because they volunteer their time to go ahead and do those abstracts. So in other words, the abstract of your paper will be read by many, many people in Spanish-speaking countries, and they target Fire Ecology as one of their major journals to go ahead and review for the latest in Fire Ecology science. The other thing is that we have over 12,000 downloads per month. This is almost 4 times the amount we had when we were a little cottage journal run on the AFI website. And this, to me, as an author, is something that speaks very loudly to me, is that because of the open access, a lot of people are looking at our journal articles, and a lot of people are checking them out and downloading the PDFs. And this is incredibly important because in the future, they probably will cite it, and it'll probably go on the impact factor. But more importantly for you is that the journal is getting out to the people that need it. Another thing is, we have these things. A lot of people refer to them as special issues. Springer calls them now collections. And a collection is, a group of papers that are grouped together on our website, and they're on a particular subject. And believe it or not, these are incredible. These are cited and downloaded the most of any of the papers on our website. So special issues or collections are the way to go if you can get into one. Now, here's the beauty of our collections is that not only are they on our website in perpetuity forever, and they're there and you can look at them and get to them very easily, is that we can add papers in in the future. And so our collections are constantly growing, constantly getting better, and it's a very nice thing for people to use, especially authors. If you look and see that your paper will go under a special issue, you can request that to be under that special issue, and I guarantee it will be cited more and downloaded more than if you just did it without the special issue. Last thing is the social media marketing, actually the marketing is just amazing for what we do for the journal. I think it's one of the real strengths of Fire Ecology. And here to talk about the social media marketing from both Springer and AFI is our executive director of AFI, the Association of Fire Ecology, and that's Annie Oxrott. Annie, want to talk about this?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Bob, and hi, everyone. So as Bob mentioned, one of the great things about being able to publish with Fire Ecology is that you not only get the marketing benefits from Springer, but you also get AFI's social marketing and presence on our website as well. So after your article is published, it will be featured on the front page of the Fire Ecology Springer website under recent articles. And those articles usually stay up for about 2 months there, just depending on how many articles we have coming in. And then, as Bob mentioned earlier, we have the Spanish translation of the abstract, which is on the article's webpage and will stay there. There's, on the right-hand side of Springer's website, you'll see an area where you can sign up for email alerts. And so anyone who has signed up for an email notification from Springer will get a notification when an article is published, and that'll go directly to their email. And then pretty much the same day or the next day, Springer will tweet out a message similar to the one that you see on the screen there that has appropriate hashtags, and it'll go to not only the @Springer Ecology Twitter handle, but at @SpringerPlants. And those two accounts combined have, I think, like 13,000 followers. So you're gonna be reaching a really wide network of people that way. AFI then follows up with a notice in our monthly newsletter. We usually will put a listing of all of the recent articles, and then we also post new articles on our social media sites. And both the newsletter and our social media sites have about 4,000 followers. So that reaches a different group of fire ecologists, scientists, managers, and all different types of organizations that then also reshare and retweet that information. Bob, thanks. AFI has recently developed some new activities to help share research results with a wider community in a really easy to digest format. So after your article is published, you'll receive an email from Bob offering you to participate in either helping to develop a short research highlight, participate in our podcast, Fire Ecology Chats, which is just about a 10-minute interview that you and your co-authors could do with Bob. You could make a short video. It could even be a video out in the field. We're also doing webinars that we are trying to connect with the Fire Science Exchange networks here in the States, but we can connect with different partners and organizations in your part of the world as well, if you'd like to do that. Or we could do a virtual chat or a Q&A with the authors. All of these activities are designed to share the key results of your research, and they're also designed to get people to go back to the Springer website to read the full article. We then share these through our website, newsletter, and social media as well. So that's it. Down at the bottom is the link where you can find more information about how to be involved in these different activities. Thanks.
Thanks, Annie. So in summary, I think Fire Ecology is now, I think, a premier journal of, if you want to publish in the field of fire ecology. It's accessed by both managers and scientists alike. And just to give you a couple other, I guess, perspectives about what fire ecology is and what it is, that I've asked two panel members to go ahead and talk about the journal Fire Ecology. The first panel member is Morgan Varner. He's a longtime associate editor, and he's also the editor of a brand new collection on prescribed fire in oaks. He works at the Tall Timbers Research Institute. Morgan?
Thanks, Bob. I was reflecting. I've been an associate editor for Fire Ecology for 8 years. I just did a count. I've written 11 papers in Fire Ecology, and I've been a member of the association since I was a graduate student. And Sharon's point earlier, and Bob's emphasis, the tying of the journal to the professional society really can't be overlooked. It's a super important part of what we do as a professional society. And I do think that's a really nice differentiating characteristic of Fire Ecology from a host of other journals, both that are formally fire, but that are also just broadly in our field. It's our journal, and I think that's a real power. In some ways, you know, once you publish in a journal, from a selfish impact, we all have an interest in it doing really well in the future, right? It's on an upswing, as Bob was talking about with an impact factor or other measures of article accesses, et cetera. But I think we take some ownership, and I've always taken ownership. When someone calls me and says, I'm thinking about submitting a paper to Fire Ecology, you know, I feel like I'm trying to get them in the boat because I want that good paper in the journal, because I want the journal to be better. And the two images that I have up here are really to, in some ways, look back at where our field has come from. Back in the day, Fire Ecology, it's been founded maybe 60 or 70 years ago. Early meetings, people working on fire research, they've been working on fire research for over a century, really were relegated to an individual session. You know, they were over in a corner in one of the different meeting rooms, whether it was the Ecological Society of America or the Society of American Foresters, or fill in your organization globally. And what the Association for Fire Ecology has done is we have our own, we define our field. And we've gone from publishing in general technical reports like Bob was mentioning earlier, or in conference proceedings. And regardless of your employer and your career direction, these have been diminished in their reputation. And really the rationale for that is, that group of outlets gets called gray literature or something else. It's that the access is very difficult. I took I took a screenshot or a photo this morning with my cell phone of the covers of these, because I own them. I have to own a copy of it. It's difficult to go and find these. It's difficult for others to access them globally. There are paywalls associated with them, et cetera. And what an open access journal does is it makes it accessible to everyone. And that's what all of us should want for our science. So I think thinking about it being our organization and our field should encourage you to seek Fire Ecology as an outlet. And then the other thing about Fire Ecology that I'll note is its emphasis on the diversity of our field. You know, that list of topics that Sharon and Bob talked about is important, but also the attention. It's not just putting up a list of topics, but it's also the attention to those topics. Bob mentioned that I'm leading a special collection right now on fire and eastern oak forests. And part of that came from the realization 5 years ago, there's a longstanding Fire and Eastern Oaks conference. It's one of the you haven't been to one and you work in Eastern oak systems or you're interested in oak systems, it's definitely worth attending. But the papers from that really great meeting had devolved from being a standalone general technical report. And then as a scientists were going, I don't want to bury it in that great literature. So I'll take that paper and I'll submit it somewhere else. And that really denigrates meetings, because then people don't want to present at a meeting. And that conference committee made a decision to pursue Fire Ecology as an outlet for the best papers of that conference. And Fire Ecology welcomed it with open arms. And we pointed out in the introduction to that special collection that over time, and lots of you feel this way for wherever you're located geographically, or perhaps your discipline, there's a little bit of a victimhood where the journals or funders don't pay attention to our field, and Southeastern and Eastern oak people feel like the broader Fire Ecology community has left them behind. Fire Ecology not only embraced it, but when we were digging through, we could see that the literature on that topic, as published by Fire Ecology, represented at the time 6% of all articles focused on a major area of fire research globally, and that was the Eastern deciduous forest. So rather than us whining about it, we approached the editorial board, and like I said, they were eager to engage and made a difference, and that followed in this current special issue, is sort of doubling down and saying we're willing to embrace that kind of diversity in topics. And the last thing I'll say is in that diversity, the celebration of the different article types, including the forum articles, I think is something that we all should think about. There are the original research papers, as Bob mentioned, but thinking about some of the other diverse options like the forum, to me, that celebrates the maturity of our field, that we want to have a discussion, some sort of discussion piece, sort of a thought piece. Here's something I want to put out in the literature to get a discussion started. And that's what an open access journal that is published by a society can really celebrate. And so I would encourage you to think about Fire Ecology, not just for original research papers that are clearly fit within within the title of the journal, but to think more broadly about how we all make this a better journal in the future.
Thank you so much, Morgan. Up next is Karen Riley. She's with the Rocky Mountain Research Station and scientist with that, and she was the vice president of HAFI and also is a AE. Karen?
Good morning, everyone. I had to have a look at my CV to see how long I've been an AE for Fire Ecology, and it's about 5 years now. And those have flown by. Things have changed a lot during that time. This publication, Fire Ecology, is special to me for a number of reasons. And I kind of reminisced about them when I was getting this presentation ready. When I started, we were still doing things what I'm going to call the good old-fashioned way, and Bob talked about it a little bit earlier, where we were passing things back and forth by direct email. So when Bob would get an article, he would think of an AE to pass it to, email that person directly, and then we would think about reviewers as the AE and send it to them directly by email. And I found this to be a really personal system. I really liked it a lot. But as Fire Ecology is getting to be a more popular venue and its impact factor is increasing, we simply just had too much volume to carry on that way. So at that point in time, we went over to Springer's system. And as others have talked about, there's a lot of advantages there to that system. It handles a lot of these things automatically. It makes it a lot easier to handle the volume of manuscripts that we have now. But I feel like we haven't lost that personal touch in going over to that Springer system. There's still a lot of direct communication between me and Bob, and oftentimes between me and the reviewers. And you will see with a lot of journals that I'll allow to be nameless today, a lot of these journals are going over to these artificial intelligence or AI systems. So when an article comes in, they let their AI system think about who would be a good reviewer, and that AI will blitz out sometimes 10 or 15 invitations to different reviewers and then revoke them right away if that person doesn't agree in a day or two, which I think is really not good for our field and really not good for those journals. And I've actually seen some really unfortunate examples where some reviewers got picked that really weren't the best reviewer for that particular article. They really weren't qualified. And that's not going to happen at Fire Ecology. We still have that personal touch where we think about, as AEs, who's going to be the most qualified reviewer. We invite that person. And I find that we really get the top people in our field as reviewers, even though we're kind of a small journal. So the way I would describe that is we're still using real intelligence. We're not using artificial intelligence to make these decisions. And I think that's really a strength of this journal. Another reason Fire Ecology is really special to me, I've served on the AFI board for a number of years. And for those of us in this field, I think AFI is a really important organization that is promoting fire ecology, research, education, and management. So the fact that we can use this journal as part of that mission to get out the best fire ecology research, I think is really important. To some of us like myself, there's maybe no more important mission in our lives than that. So to that end, as Bob mentioned, I'm the editor of a collection, which again is similar to a special issue. And we termed it, I have a couple other editors who are helping me on that, Lita Kogziar and Andy Hudak. And what we decided to do is call it Frontiers in Fire Ecology. And the point of this collection was to attend AFI conferences. In particular, we focused on one in Florida a few years ago and find the most cutting edge, the most important research that was being presented at that conference and invite those authors to submit to this journal. I think we have like 7 or 8 articles in that collection now. And that's been really fun to think about what research was really pushing the envelope. So that collection is kind of a sampler platter. It's a smorgasbord of different topics, including smoke and prescribed fire. One particular article that I want to draw attention to is one that was written by Marc Castanew and others over in Spain and Portugal. And he titled his article, Empowering Strategic Decision-Making for Wildfire Management, Avoiding the Fear Trap and Creating a Resilient Landscape. This is one of our most cited articles from Fire Ecology. And the way that this came about was I heard Marc present at the AFI conference, and it was a voice that I just don't hear represented very often in the literature. Marc is a person who is an incident commander on incidents, and he has a lot of on-the-ground experience, and it was a voice we don't often hear. So I told him, you have to get this story published, and he was good enough to submit it to my collection. So I think that's a real success story, a diverse voice we don't hear often. So in conclusion, in my opinion, if you're looking for a quality professional journal with kind of a personal touch in which to publish your fire ecology research, you need look no further. Fire Ecology is for you. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate that. We now get to the phase where you get to ask of all of us, Annie, Lori, Karen, Morgan, myself, and Sharon, any question you want. Please use the chat box because I can't figure out how to unmute you all, but use the chat box. And some of you out there, I know, want a personal interview to see if your paper is right, or you want some consultation. If you do want consultation, let me put my email down, and we can do that over the next 2 or 3 days if you want a personal thing. If you don't mind other people listening in, go ahead and ask your questions now, and that'll be fine. Again, any questions at all?
I think there's one there in the chat already from Deborah Landau. Sorry if I didn't say that right. Is there a way to know what special collection topics will be featured in upcoming issues in case we're working on a relevant topic? And another one just came in too.
Okay, so special issues. Right now, there is only one outstanding special issue that really isn't advertised on the web page, and I really can't say anything about it yet. But I could tell if you sent me a potential title of that. I could tell you whether or not it would be good for the special issue. It's on Europe, and it's Fire Ecology in Europe, and so I can't. They haven't finalized everything, and I'm pretty sure they wouldn't want me to talk about it. But right now, there are 8 existing special issues or collections, and if you feel you fit under one of them, just contact me and I will contact the editors of that special issue and we'll get your paper started. Okay. The next question is it any better for you if papers are submitted in latex? No. It doesn't hold up anything. We'll take it in any form and it won't really matter. It's better off if it's in Word or Adobe PDF, but latex is fine as well. Springer handles just about everything, and that is one of the beautiful things about going to Springer is that we can accept all of the different word processing outputs, and not only that, all different type of figure and files that they'll figure it out. My preferred email to contact is the editor at fireecology.net, but I am on, if you're a Forest Service employee, I'm on the system. Don't hesitate to call me on that or email me on that. I don't have a phone dedicated to Fire Ecology, so it's either going to have to be through one of those two emails. Okay, the next question from Matt Vaughn says, sometimes formatting in recently published FE papers differ from that in the January 2000 guide. Is it correct to assume that those differences arise in production process? Okay, I am so glad you asked this question, Matt, because it throws everybody off. One of the reasons that we have Lori as a copy editor is so that all the papers will be underneath the same venue. And the problem is, of course, is that Springer will accept anything. And if we hadn't inserted and we had to physically tell Springer that Lori has to be in the production process, we have to have a copy editor. If we remove Lori, papers that you submit go automatically to print, go automatically to production. And that is not good for you. And it's not good for the paper, for the journal, because it makes us look unprofessional and it makes you look unprofessional. Lori makes us all look like rock stars. So one of the big things is that if you see those revision guidelines differ, it's because Springer allows it to be so. And Lori tries to catch most of it, but she doesn't do all of it. And all Springer does is they have a AI package that they run the document through to check, for just minor things. Lori does the deep editing, and it's to your benefit. She makes me look like Albert Einstein sometimes. So I hope I answered your question. Any other questions? Okay, anybody that wants a personal consultation, please use the chat and let me know so I can know to put time or whatever. Okay, contact me at that email address. I want to thank my fellow panelists, Sharon, Annie, Karen, Morgan, and Lori. Appreciate your being here and give us the time. This webinar has been recorded, and Annie will go ahead and put it up on the website. If you want to listen again, or you want to throw that link around and have other people look at it, I think you'll find that publishing in Fire Ecology is one of the few things that are enjoyable in this world. And please send your papers our way. We'll give them their just due. Thanks, everyone.